Guys, welcome back to the Construct Your Life podcast. Man, you are going to love this guest. I got Reid Tileston on the podcast. He wrote a book called Reid and Done. He's climbed multiple stairs. He'll tell you that story. Just an amazing guy with great energy, multiple exits of his business. And he also teaches entrepreneurship, where searchers buy businesses. So very power-packed episode. Join us inside.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Oh, we did it. No, we got the man. The countdown is great because I always mess with my producer. He's like drinking water, and I'll like click the countdown. He's like, stop it. But we got Reid in the house. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Happy Thursday, Austin. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. Read your book, almost finished, loving it. There's so much we could talk about in business, and we will, right? But one of the things that I was more intrigued with is this story of climbing the stairs. Like this is, who celebrates an exit of a business, mowing up and down flights of stairs? Let's unpack that story a little bit. Cause I just think in my opinion, when I was reading it and hearing about it and heard it on the podcast, it told me more about you than anything that you've done in business personally, just from my point of view.
And I have my parents to thank for it, Austin. They met in the 70s at the starting line of a running race in California. It was a hot day. So my dad, who's 6'2", skinny, fit dude, his first cousin, Terry, is 6'5". They were worried about chafing, so they were lubing up with Vaseline in her armpits, nipples, in her thighs. And my mother walked up. She was like, hey, guys, can I borrow some Vaseline? That's how they met. One thing led to another. So I'm like the kid of these crazy endurance athletes. But it goes into a really key point I want to hit. And that is that, to me, grit and the ability to do hard things comes from relationships. And ultimately, like the drive to go do that staircase run is because of the motivation that I get from my parents to do like cool endurance athletic things. But yeah, in 1915, the Swiss built a funicular up an 8,000 foot peak in the Swiss Alps, 11,674 stairs, the longest staircase in the world, a 7X on the Empire State Building. Took them 85 years. They had the genius idea to do a running race up it called the Niesen-Trumpenlauf, and I was able to get into it and complete it a couple weeks after I sold the business. And by the way, the most important part of the purchase agreement is that I literally put in there, I will be gone during these times for this
That's
race.
What I thought was so cool. I was like,
we can go. Yeah.
No, that's what I thought was so cool. You're like, hey man, this is so cool. Very excited about selling my business, but just so you know, it's in the contract. I'm doing this thing.
Yeah, I'm like, we can negotiate on like indemnity terms. We can negotiate on like indemnity caps. We can talk about like price a little bit. This is a non-negotiable. This is happening. So it was, it was absolutely amazing event. And, one funny story, which I go through in the book, Reid and Done, you get it at reidandone.com, Amazon, Audible, whole 9 yards from there, is that, as I was training for this event, right, I like to work on the business by at times working in the business, particularly for an industrial services business like this one was. So I was out in the field leading by example. And Austin, like I really jacked up my back, like banging a hose onto the ground. And what happened is, and this is like why I'm in the heart of training for this event. And one of the most humbling moments of that process is that one of the key team members at this, dirty industrial services business, he saw me like limping around and he's like, man, you're walking like John Wayne. I was like, hey, it's pretty cool. I just kind of got called like John Wayne-esque by this like really like tough guy that I have a lot of respect for. But yeah, we overcame that injury, ended up doing the race, doing really well with it. And it was a ton of fun.
So what's interesting to me, right, is I think one of the things that shocked me, we're 16 months in, my first acquisition, ETA acquisition, right? the amount of I don't think people understand the daily consistency and to not make the business too excitable, right? Especially when it's a business that's been running, and I'm an excitable guy, right? But the way I look at you climbing up those stairs, you're doing the same thing over and over again for a lot of stairs. And that second gear to kind of like zone out and just head towards the finish line, is that something that you cultivated, or is that something that has always been built in you to kind of see something through, like when you sign up for something like that? It was so important to you.
Yeah, and what ultimately drives it is it's the relationships. When I actually peel back, what is that intrinsic fuel? What is that intrinsic drive? What is that intrinsic ability to just take the pain and keep on moving? It is about relationships. I talked about how my parents kind of endowed me with that because they've done great endurance events in their life. But I'll give you a different example too. I'm an adjunct professor, so I teach entrepreneurship through acquisition to undergrads, to MBAs, to executives. I teach it, at MBA programs, right? With that said, like the reason that I do that is because when I was in business school at Chicago Booth 2013, right when I got there, Booth was launching their entrepreneurship through acquisition initiatives. I had been a multi-unit successful Anytime Fitness owner operator, so I was a small business owner, so things kind of aligned there. So I got to run the student group, plan the first search fund ETA conference, and then I got to be the teaching assistant for Booth's first ever class on ETA with these two awesome first-time adjunct professors in their late 30s. Austin, this was a transformational experience for me, ETAing this class. It inspired me to go out and continue to be an ETA practitioner. And it also inspired me that at some point, because I'd seen the impact that class had on me and that class had on others, and the relationship that I cultivated with those two professors and others involved in it, that gave me the grit and the drive to go out and be an adjunct professor and make that happen as well. So ultimately, when I peel back, what drives grit, what drives persistence, what drives the ability to just not quit and get things done, to me, I have always found that in relationships.
And because you've had an exit, but you're still teaching. You wrote a book. You're very passionate about it. So, it really shows that you're down to your core, your character. It's more about these relationships that you talk about, which is what I pride my life on too. Is really the driving motivation. Because I'm sure, and I don't know your personal life, but you could just chill on a beach if you felt like it. But that's not really what drives you day in and day out.
That's right. The only beach I'm going to chill on is if I ever go swim across the English Channel, I'll chill on the beach on France on the other side for all of like 20 minutes because I'll be so, like dead from doing it. But yeah, there's so much cool stuff to do out there, Austin, that no, I'm super. The bottom line is to be a better American is to be an entrepreneurial business owner. Mm-hmm. The American dream is alive and well right now, despite what we might hear and what's going on with the silver tsunami. It's real. There's a lot of businesses for sale. There's a ton of buyers out there. There always are. It's not easy to buy a business. It's not easy to run a business. It's a lot of work. Oftentimes, if you're going to do SBA 7(a) debt, which I recommend for a variety of reasons, it's going to come with a personal guarantee. Austin, you play in the real estate space. There's personal guarantees in real estate everywhere. If you default, bankruptcy is real, and that can have catastrophic consequences. But with that said, it is a great option that everybody should be aware of and people should consider going down. And that's the intrinsic reason that I wrote the book, grititdone.com.
And when you were at school and they started it, and to watch where the fever is now with buy then build and all these ETA programs, this progression has been super quick. And what would you say from an outside looking in, why it's become so popular? We're in our own ecosystem on Twitter or X, but why do you think it's become so popular and more obtainable for people these days?
One great thing about America, love government, hate government, the SBA 7(a) lending programs about empowering business owners are absolutely fantastic. And some of them are uniquely American. So at one point I want to make is just be thankful that the SBA exists and just give your like neighbor a pat in the back and say thank you for like subsidizing business ownership in America. End of the day, Gallup, and you probably remember this because I go through this study in the book. Gallup surveys people on what institutions they have the most confidence in every year in the summertime, and consistently for the last 20 years, small business ownership is the top of the list. Americans have the most confidence in small business as an institution. Small business is always number one at like, I think it was 64% last time, organized religion, 32%, Congress, 8%, military is typically number two. And if you drill down on the reasons that Americans have faith in small business, it's about two themes. One, it's the embodiment of the American dream. Second, it is the accountability. People like the accountability of small business owners. So being a small business owner, it's fantastic in so many ways. You're the most popular institution in America. You can have an unrivaled level of autonomy and freedom in how you run the business to whatever aligns congruently to you as an individual. If you want to maximize profits, great. If you're a Milton Friedman guy, great, maximize profits. If to you it's about hiring people and relationships, then great. Don't maximize profits, focus on people development and team development, though I would tell you that ultimately the two are very highly correlated. If it's about more community stuff for you, then do that. Like you have full freedom of how to live a professional life, which I just don't think exists with W-2 jobs necessarily. Outside of that, we talked about the relationships. Some of the most fulfilling relationships, Austin, that I have in my life are with the key team members from companies I've owned. And even after, the company is no longer mine, those relationships still exist to this day. I still talk to the guy that, made that John Wayne comment, right? I'm still, I have great relationships with so many people over the 16 years I've done this. And last but not least, being a business owner, you see how the sausage is made. So it gives you a view of what good government can be like. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Autonomy, relationships, become a better citizen. It's something that everyone should look at.
No, I agree completely. And so you jump into this business that one of the things I like the best about you is you're like, I'm just going to call around and figure it out. And I'm going to get curious and ask the questions. So I have backups on backups. So we got this big truck that costs $800K. Do you buy a new one? What's a used one cost? I just love how you're going to turn over every stone so you have the information necessary to do that. And similar, I'd never seen a furnace until I bought this company. I'm from Texas. I didn't even know what a furnace was, but I just taught myself really quickly, asked the right questions, sat in the right rooms. As a business owner, do you think that's a trait that you have to have if you're planning to get into ETA, of just like being ridiculously curious and asking all the right questions? Or do you just need that special who in your business to do that for you?
I'm a business owner, Austin. You're a business owner. And ultimately, whatever I do not uncover during diligence, whatever stone I don't don't turn over, is just going to come back to hurt me. That's the bottom line. So if you're someone that wants to, if you like pain, if you want a surprise, it's going to cost you money, stress, and time, then don't do diligence. It's as simple as that. If you, want to be successful, do it. Because I think of diligence as on a scale of 11 out of 10. I think it's actually impossible to get everything done. You're going to run into surprises when you get to that operational role, almost no matter what. I've yet to come across someone that hasn't. So you want to get you want to get to the 10 out of 10, knowing that there's going to be things that you just can't anticipate that are going to come. So certainly control what you can. And Austin, I absolutely love doing this podcast with you, by the way, because you're out there, you own businesses, you invest in businesses, you're actively involved in the space, and you bring people on this podcast that are also doing that stuff. But the fact that you're doing it allows this dialogue to be so much more robust. So I appreciate how you give back to the community and you give back to your audience by having that dynamic exist. Because I know there's a ton of things you could be doing right now with your time that would add value to your HVAC business, add value to your portfolio overall. I just think it's awesome that from the operator's seat, you're actually doing this.
I love that. I told the seller yesterday, this is a true story. He is actually project managing his last project. So he is 66 years old. He's been doing HVAC and plumbing since he was 16. And he promised this is his biggest client. This is their biggest project ever. He said, can I stay around and run this project for you for a year once I sell the company? And I said, of course. I said, but you better show up on time and I don't want any attitude. And he said, I can show up on time. I can't promise you no sass. And I said, fair enough. But he posted last night. He said, going back to work for the company that I sold and started, I thought was going to be traumatic. I'm actually having the best time of my life. I read that right before I went to bed last night, and I was just like, dude, I don't know if there's anything better that I've read in my life. Like, it's so he gets to go out with the biggest project of his career with his client that he loves, and he's doing it for me humbly, and I'm not bothering him. He's doing his thing, but I mean, is there anything better than that? I really don't think there is anything better than that.
No, I'm so happy for you, man. That is awesome. My heart is like beating like in a happy place right now because of that story. It's so cool. And it hits on something as well, which, one thing I'm doing now in addition to the book and the investing and, all that stuff is I'm doing a PhD on entrepreneurship through acquisition, right? And the first thing, because small business, 43.5% of US GDP, and there's a surprisingly small amount of academic research done on small business. And academic research is pretty cool because it's data driven. It's really, really, really well scrutinized. So good learnings come out of it. So there's so many cool things to explore. But it's also hard for academic research to get access to small business owners, which I can do because I am one, right? So I can fill that gap. But the first thing I studied was individuals that sold successful businesses, minimum 500K of EBITDA, but usually a couple $1 million. So we're talking about like the 1% here. And I analyzed factors that drove satisfied versus unsatisfied. Okay. And you know what a big surprise was, which you just anecdotally hit on, is that the really satisfied owners are actually the ones that thought about how they wanted to stay involved in the business after they sold it. My perception and my style is, hey, when I'm not owner, I want out as quickly as possible. It's better for the team. It's better for the new owner. It's just better for everyone, right? Like, it's just awkward for me to be there, That's my bias. That's what I do. But that's not what the top performers do. The top performers do what your seller did. They figure out what's going to make me happy. What do I think is going to make me happy? And what does that involvement look like? Maybe it's just getting lunch with, the new owner once a month. Maybe it's going by the business once a quarter for a barbecue. Maybe it's, being a part of the last big project, right? The ones that achieve top performance figure out what the intelligent way to stay involved in, which I was really surprised by. But that's why we do research, right? To get out of our own heads.
So here's what's crazy. 18 years ago, he opened a second location with a business partner. It went south, and he had to sell that to him, and it's always hurt his feelings. And so I asked him during the process, I said, what happened? What went wrong? Blah, blah, blah. He gave me the plan that he had in his mind. I am executing on that exact plan right now. And when I get them both successful, I'm going to go to him and send him on a trip and go, your dream is complete, with your name on it, by the way, sir. And so that's important to me. I mean, this person spent 55 years in the trade. And let it be known, because I am a little of a bull sometimes too. All the things he told me that I disregarded are all true. So I should have probably listened just a little bit. You got to learn the hard way, and he loves it. Yeah. He's like, I knew you'd come back and you'd tell me I was right. I was like, yeah, fair enough. You might know what you're doing when it comes to that, So
that's awesome. And Austin, you're illustrating the point that I was making earlier about the power of relationships, right? You're building that with the seller. And how cool is it that I can just tell in the way you're talking, it's not about the money, right? It's about the relationship. You're like, you get a lifelong friend out of this, That's awesome. No. And yeah.
It's so great because I'm in a small town. Right. And so every move I make, this is actually a revelation I had. I spent most of my life in Austin and San Antonio, and I could start a business there, and that's cool. And it would be fine, and we would have people, and we would make impact. I'm in a rural town. Every hire I make affects a family deeply to have a great job here. So I'm just going to grow here because every move I make ripples into the community And we're a beacon of possibilities and hope because we went from 19 employees to 45 in 15 months. And everybody's like, whoa, I need to go get a job there. So now they're inviting their cousins over, and they're like, and their wives are saying, oh, my husband's finally happy at work. Like, dude, that right, who cares what the revenue is? Like, that's what small business is. And, you know, that's, to me, is the part that excites me the most about these careful, thoughtful people getting into this ETA space for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so great because for people like us that have been in it for a long time, like we know, I almost say universally, we know that's why we do it. And that's what drives like the happiness, and that's what drives the utility. And that's like the intrinsic reason for it. It is all about the people. It is all about the relationships. It is all about improving communities. It is all about improving the country. And that's the best part in the back end. I think that people oftentimes get into it because they want the autonomy and the freedom, which definitely it can be there if you do it right. You know, buy a good business, follow the steps in the book, talk to people like you, and everything like that. But that's like that's only the beginning. The best part is the people, and I don't think that individuals can really appreciate that until they've actually been into it. And one reason I wrote the book is that Buy and Build is awesome. HBR Guide to Buying a Small Business is awesome. There's like a lot of good books out there in the space. The one thing that I want to add to the literature with is, again, show the framework, show the step-by-step stuff that works for me, but add, as you well know, the personal anecdotes in there about what it's actually like to run a business, both the great part about the relationships and some of the not so great things about, you know, getting kicked, you know, where by key team members at key times and things like that. I want people to understand, you know, from a story standpoint, how these frameworks actually play out in the real world, both to inspire people to go down the path and see that, oh, there's so much great human connection here, but also to illustrate, listen, you know, you can run a spreadsheet, you can look at people that have made a bunch of money on this, and to your point, you know, can go live on a beach and do that, but it's hard work to get there. Getting those processes in place, getting the right people in place takes time. There's ups and downs with it. It's tough stuff. So I want people to really understand that.
No, your book added what is missing from Twitter and X and Buy Then Build. Your book added nuance. And nobody talks about nuance, right? An understanding of these are actually, here's the framework, but here's the actual thing that can happen, and see what happened to me. And then let me share my stories. So when you're having an issue in your business, you don't feel like you're the only one having that issue. You know, that's the biggest thing, right? That's what the change is that I think people are looking for.
Yeah, and to build upon that too, that's why I love peer groups so much. I think, Austin, that anybody that looks for a business to buy without a peer group or operates a business without a peer group, like, oh, it's like one of the biggest mistakes to make. Because like people think you have to. A conception I hear a lot is that, oh, you join a peer group when you're successful. Like, no, you join a peer group to become successful, because owning a business is lonely, right? The crown is heavy. You can talk to your friends about certain things. You can talk to your family about certain things, but there's so many things you can only talk to other business owners or operators about. So it's so critical to find those peer groups. And, you know, someone in the ETA SMB space, I was hanging out with them a week ago, and they were telling me that these prospective searchers were pushing back on paying a really reasonable amount of money to join a peer group of people that were also searching. And he told me the amount of money that he was thinking about charging for this. And I was like, people, they're pushing back on that amount of money. Like, what are they thinking? So if there's one piece of guidance for anyone who's listening to this and searching right now, find a peer group while you're searching. If it's just like, you know, 5 friends that you met at SM Bash and you want to get together and just talk weekly or monthly, you know, that's great, right? If it's people that you took a class with, that you just want to make a mastermind with, that's fantastic. I think, though, that doing something that's structured, that people are paying money for, and there's like actually like a moderator for to hold accountability and drive results, is absolutely critical. And by the way, for anyone that's in Cleveland, there's one incubator in Cleveland called Promise Partners. This place is almost too good to be true. They've been, even before ETA was a thing, there was a professor at Case Western who basically taught small business ownership to his students. Then he created a group called Promise Partners that he invites students to go to. This was like 30 years ago. This individual has been doing ETA, or this group's been doing ETA incubation, empowering small business owners for 30 years. And the crazy part, Austin, it's like quarterly meetings, monthly coaching sessions, like 12 people and people like me to moderate and push people and hold them accountable, in-person stuff about talking to lawyers, accountants, QOE and everything. No joke, they charge $400 a year. When I saw this, I was like,
Stop.
and they've been doing it before ETA was even a thing.
Oh my
right?
goodness.
And when I discovered this, because I do my PhD at Case Western, and I got really involved in the ETA space down there. I teach down there now, obviously. I'm like, you guys are doing so much social good with this. And do you realize like the market value of what you're providing is
you're
easily
talking about for $400 a year, you could possibly give somebody a business they could buy for $5 million. Think about the ROI on that.
Yeah. It's just it to this day it astounds me. But to your point though, I love organizations like that so much, and I don't think there's one like Promise Partners anywhere else in the U.S. By the way, because it's just empowering business ownership. It is empowering the American dream, and it makes the country better. So a key takeaway: whatever the peer group is, there's no right one, there's no wrong one. Find a peer group while you're searching. Find a peer group while you're operating. No brainer.
Because I think if it wasn't for half of what happens to, pardon me, less than half, you it's not in a book. And so during this 15 months, which there's a lot behind this, that's the craziest thing. I could have your entire group of kids you're teaching. I could have them in full on sweats if I explain the last 15 months. They wouldn't even. It feels like a 3-part trilogy movie for Lord of the Rings. I will write this book one day. If I didn't have the people to reach out to, Josh Smith, Reg, etc., I don't know if I would have, if I didn't have my CEO who's been in the plumbing space for 20 years, I don't know if I would have made it. And that's why those peer groups and those people that you can talk to are just so important. And I can't recommend it enough. It changed my life even back before I got into business and I was in real estate, and I was meeting people that had, 40 Airbnbs and 3,000 units, and they own 10 businesses. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a thing that people do. And like, they're like, you should read this book and this book. And I'm like, oh my God, I was just like in heaven. And you know what I said to them? The guy that invited me in the group, he said, why do you want to join? I said, my dreams are bigger than the people I'm around. And he was oh, that's the best answer I've ever heard. You're in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Austin, if I'd known you when I was writing the book, I would have put that quote in it right there. That is epic, man. Oh, that's so true.
No, it's the truth, right? Because I cut my teeth in the hospitality business. I sold wine for 20 years, high-end hotels. It was great. And I had real estate, but I had never been around anybody that like had like 5,000 units and like 10 businesses doing 100 million. And then I get in this group, and the joke is there's 145 people in the group, right, above us. And there was cohorts that came in, and each cohort had a group of people. You had like 5 people together. So there was 15 of us, and each body got points. And one of the things is if we scheduled and did a 30-minute phone call or Zoom call in a month time, you got the most points for whoever did that, right? And so everybody got like 2, 3, like 4, 6, 7. I got 95. I did 95 in 30 days. And they're like, kid, we don't know what you got. You're raw as hell, but like you're really smart and you connect good with people. They're like, just keep doing that. And it was and my second favorite quote of all time is sometimes, because I was also an alcoholic at the time, but not anymore. But sometimes we don't love ourselves enough to change, that we have to borrow the belief that others have in us long enough for us to believe it in ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what that peer group did for me.
Yeah. Austin, I have zero to add to what you just said. I just want to take a second and be present. And to all of your listeners, I just want to validate the wisdom, the insight, and the value of what you just heard from Austin. I would take that clip and replay it every night before you go to bed and replay it when you wake up in the morning. That was amazing.
It's the mental Olympics of life is a very complex journey, but you know how the journey starts, and that's why I think about this. I can't stop thinking about you climbing those stairs. This is like burned in my memory because that is the definition of life. It's 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. That's it.
Step by step intentional action. Step by step intentional action. Smile and enjoy the journey while you're doing it, right? The end destination does not matter. We're both goal-oriented people. We're going to find a way to grit it done, period. But just enjoy the journey. That's the most important thing. By the way, if I had, while I was climbing the staircase and passing somebody, slipped and like broke my leg or something like that, on the railway or something like that, I probably would have tried to power forward and, probably still would have made it happen anyways. But even if I had like broken my leg and passed out and couldn't do it, I just would have gone back the next year and do it, right?
Yeah.
Because like failure is just a primer for future success. It is as simple as that. And ultimately, you'd asked me about the habit cultivation earlier. At this point in my life, I just know that if I am here and I do something hard that challenges me and pushes me, that there's going to be elation on the end. So I'm just conditioned to do hard things. I think for people that don't, so at this point, it's just a habit for me, which is great. And it's going to be with me the rest of my life. For people that just haven't had a chance to cultivate, that habit yet, my guidance is just surround yourself with someone that can hold you accountable to those first, whether it's 21 days, 30 days, 45 days, whatever days amount works for you, to cultivate in you that what I'll call the grit it done mindset of just do exactly what you don't want to do, precisely when you don't want to do it, and then good things will come your way. So it's just about that brute force habit creation of doing challenging things. This is in a lot of books you'll read. It is in the academic literature, peer-reviewed, a law of life. Effective people are effective because they do hard things. They do things they don't want to, and they do them when they don't want to do them. Simple as that. So if you want to feel effectiveness, learn and condition yourself to do the challenging things when you don't want to do them.
I love it. I have one more question before we get out of here. So you bought a business, you ran it, you sold. Okay. One of the things that most people don't talk about is what was the actual feeling of selling a business? And obviously the money in your bank account changed your life, but did it really change your life? Because you seem to be somebody that's still doing what he loves doing. So I'm just curious, like the emotions / like mindset, to see it through.
Yeah, absolutely. So fantastic question. So I'm going to answer it with 2 things. First and foremost, the morning after I sold the business, right? I intentionally made this video of myself for like 3 minutes of just reminding myself of how much of a victory it was, that you just crushed it in every single way with this, not just the money, but the transaction, the way it was structured, the retention bonuses, everything. Because I know myself well, Austin. I know that like 2 years from now, I'd be trying to be like, oh, you didn't do enough. You got to do more. So I made this like video that I still watch to remind myself of how great this was. But the other reason I did it is that opportunity that I talked about in the book, The Industrial Services Company, was life-changing in so many ways. But the next things that I do have to be better than that. The fitness businesses were great, right? The industrial services opportunity was even better. I'm thinking about what's going to be next, and I'm not going to allow myself to regress to something that wasn't as good as that. I believe in the saying, good, better, best. Never ever rest until good is better and better is best. Where I actualize that now is writing the book, teaching, and doing the academic research on small business. Because at the end of the day, one thing is that if there's a business doing like $2 million of EBITDA with no customer concentration, recurring revenue, stable management team, everyone in the world is going to want to buy that one, right? But for the average American that is making $1,118 a week in wages, so gross it up to $70K a year, they can go out and buy a business doing $400,000 of EBITDA, not 80% SBA financing, 10% seller note, 10% personal equity. not even grow the business at all, Austin, just keep EBITDA where it is currently, sell it for 10 years at the same multiple that they bought it for, they're going to make more money while they own the business. They're going to have more autonomy and more freedom, especially if they follow the steps in the book or talk to people like you about how to, work on the business, not in the business. They can be an entrepreneurial business owner, get some great relationships, get a view of what good governance like. And at the end of 10 years when the SBA loan's paid off, they're going to have a 7-figure exit. So you're going to go from making $70K a year to being a millionaire, right? Now it's a ton of work. The risks of failure are real, but ultimately, you can go get an MBA. That's great. You can go to a weekend workshop. That's great. But reading this book, Grit It Done, available at grititdone.com, a little bit of, $8, I think, is what it's going to cost in June. 3 hours of your time. It is the most time efficient, cost-effective first step in the process, because I think that to be a better American is to be an entrepreneurial business owner, and that's what fires me up.
I love that, guys. So go to the website, grab the book. Trust me, it's a must read, and share it with a friend if you enjoyed this episode. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you so much,
guys. Let me take a minute to tell you about my buddies over at Lead Hub, Ben and Aaron, the best humans I know. Not only are they amazing at marketing for trade companies, but Ben started his HVAC company in his garage, sold it for multi-million dollars. So when this guy talks, I listen. When we took over Dietz Mechanical, we had 22 reviews in 22 years. In 7 short months, we went from 22 reviews to 107. We went from a 4.2 to a 4.7. We tripled our Facebook presence and we tripled our calls. If you're an HVAC, plumbing, electric, landscaping company, and you're looking for a no BS approach to marketing, you're looking for people who have done it before, you got to go to leadhub.net